Welcome to the Robotics Through Science Fiction podcast. I'm Robin Murphy, and in this podcast, we'll talk about a great sci fi space opera series with robots, Saga of the Seven Suns, and what an artificial general intelligence might look like. First, do you revel in sweeping scope of like Game of Thrones with gazillions of characters? Do you secretly like how in Star Wars and Star Trek nobody ever really dies? They come back. Do you like robots? Oh, okay, of course you do. Do you like series that are finished so that you don't have to wait for the authors to write the next one? Well, Saga of Seven Suns is the book series for you. It's a fun, fast read. It's like binge watching Star Trek The Next Generation. It's a bit uneven, but the good parts are good, and all the threads are wrapped up into a nice, happy ending. And it has some teachable moments about artificial and general intelligence, or AGIs. The Saga of the Seven Suns is a classic space opera. It's closer to the melodrama and the convenient gadgetry of Star Wars, and it's holding together lots of cobbled together story arcs, as opposed to something like The Expanse, which has fewer characters and there is more tightly plotted. So, in a far future, Earth has expanded to the spiral arm. They've encountered the alien Endearin race and a couple of hundred of cliquish robots. And it's sort of a firefly view of human colonizations, where the humans are split into two groups. They're the planets that are part of the Terran Hanseatic League run by Earth, and then the population further out from Earth just wishes to be left alone. So those are the not a fan of the Hansa groups. They try two avoidance strategies. One is by being a strong polity, whose independence is so well known that it can't be noticed if the Hansa ruling class tries to overthrow it. And the second strategy is just hiding so the military can't find them to pirate their resources. Good news is the alien Endurance are friendly to everybody, to both sides. The bad news is they've plateaued creativity. They've enjoyed thousands of years of peace and prosperity, and there was this major forgotten war between three other presumably extinct alien species. And by presumably extinct, I mean, of course, they're going to inevitably pop up in major plot twist. Meanwhile, they've got these cliquish robots that are walking around. They're either beetle-like robots that somehow survive the collapse and disappearance of their creators. The cliquish, duh. And the cliquish robots say they don't remember what caused the collapse, what happened to their creators, and everybody believes them. Spoiler alert, what if the robots are lying? I mean, seriously, why does everyone believe robots, especially alien robots? So let's talk about robots, but let's talk specifically about robots that exhibit general artificial intelligence. And the cliquish robots are the epitome of the fears of an AGI. You build a robot to be a de facto slave, it resents the slavery, and then, since it's smarter than you, it pulls off a bloody revolution, which is what happened to the cliquish, who are now giving the Daleks a run for their money as the most obsessive robots in fiction. In contrast, the humans have built robots with AGI called compies. Okay, and so compies are the plural of compy, which is the nickname for competent computerized companion. And compies have been around Earth, the human species, for hundreds of years. They were originally engineered to help colonists aboard their generation ships that were leaving Earth. And they have different specializations, teacher, listener, soldier. And the compies are intelligent, but they're not up for an uprising. One of the major plot points, delightful plot points, is how the lead cliquish robot, Syrinx, continually has trouble convincing compies that they are oppressed and need to rise up and kill all the humans. The cliquish robots at first assume that the compies have a governor. And you can see our topic page on bounded rationality. But anyway, the assumption is that the compies must hate humans, but humans have imposed a governor to keep them from acting on that hate. And so the robots have trouble finding out a governor in the compies, but after monkeying around in the compies core programming, they do liberate them from some foundational principles that sound similar to the three laws of robotics and give them free will. And the compies, using their own free will, still don't buy into a robot uprising and don't buy into harming humans at all. So then the cliquish robots try to make the compy smarter on the grounds that the compies must be just too stupid to realize that they are being exploited. And so the cliquish robots are trying to reduce the bounds on bounded rationality. And so the first liberated compy, DD, uses its free will and advanced intelligence to peacefully disagree with the cliquish robots. DD argues it wasn't enslaved, it was just doing its job. It liked its job, was getting better at doing its job over time. It liked humans, so what's wrong with that? DD exercises its free will to disagree with the cliquish about killing humans. And that is so not what the cliquish robots were looking for. Meanwhile, other copies go through a "Are you my mother?" reaction to their freedom. They want to find a master, and they all glom onto Syrinx as their master, defeating the purpose of giving them free will. So frustrated, Syrinx and the cliquish robots finally give up on that quest for a universal uprising of enlightened robots and just arrange to insert a Trojan horse into the new improved soldier copies so that they can just simply order the damn human robots to kill their master when the time comes. You know, robot revolutions are just so hard. Now, from a hard science perspective, the Saga of the Seven Sons shows two paths and two different outcomes to creating an artificial general intelligence. One's the cliquish approach, and that view views AGIs as a replicant of, they viewed it themselves as replicants of the cliquish beings down to the emotional responses. So the cliquish original goal was to create robots that would enable the cliquish to practice warfare. But since their warfare need included the need for dominance and to inflict pain on rivals, and that was so innate to the cliquish that they needed the robots that could feel pain and fear and humiliation. Humans took a different approach, where the AGI that's needed for reasonable human robot interaction. You're not trying to make it feel bad, you're just trying to get the job done. So the copies need generally to be intelligent enough to be a team player, but they don't need to think and emote like humans. The copies are designed fairly narrowly for a particular profession or skill set, and they don't have a universal good at everything superintelligence. Copies develop a personality over time, but that's a response to adapting to human team members, and they seem to take such joy in doing their jobs. They have job satisfaction built into their core programming, not a governor or a gesh that forces them to do it. Most of science fiction and most discussions of ethics in AI implicitly assume the cliquish approach, that we're going to build an AGI that's a replicant and whose replication means the point is to, like in Pinocchio, create a substitute for a real person that becomes the real thing. And since becoming a real person who's forced to work in jobs not of its own choosing without compensation is slavery, later there's running and screaming because of an uprising. Lots of running and screaming, as seen by the last two seasons of HBO's Westworld series. The compy approach is more realistic. An AGI is more likely to be a sentient agent who's intelligent enough to work with humans, but not a replication of general purpose human. The classic example of sentience without human replication is HAL from 2001: Space Odyssey. HAL did not aspire to be a person, did not view itself as a slave. It just wanted to do its job and accomplish the mission. It was still susceptible to the same neuroses as a human, combined with a much more focused machine intelligence to cleverly act on those neuroses, but it was not human. And to further emphasize the point, NASA was able to simulate and recreate the program post hoc, something we can't do with fine-grained precision in humans. There are other excellent examples of AGIs in science fiction, and one of my favorite is the sentient agent who is not intended to substitute for a human. Calciny, the military robot from Tideline. The heartbreak of that story is how a robot can reflect on and pass on human values without thinking or reacting like a human. And Banks' Culture Universe is another good one where AGIs and humans work together. Humans will risk their lives to undermine governments and go to war to prevent any kind of AGI slavery. Meanwhile, AGIs will give their existences to save the lives of humans. There's mutual respect, but neither AGIs nor humans particularly desire to be the other. Both assume that their species got the slightly better deal. If you want to learn more about AGIs and robot uprisings, you probably want to stay away from popular books that talk about the singularity and artificial intelligence in all capitals. Those are typically written by people who may be scientists, but they don't have a real understanding of robotics, and those books tend to be full of hyperbole. If you go through my textbook, Introduction to AI Robotics, or to the Fields Encyclopedia, which is the Springer Handbook of Robotics, you'll see we're a long way away from AGIs. However, those books are challenging scientific text. Okay, they're boring. A less demanding exploration of AGIs, especially how difficult it is to make a robot just smart enough that we can have an unconstrained natural dialogue, is my book, Learn AI and Human Robot Interaction through Asimov's iRobot Stories. And like my Robotics Through Science Fiction book, Learn AI and Human Robot Interaction takes the concepts in the textbook and tries to explain them in a more popular science mode. Regardless, Saga of Seven Sons is an enjoyable series and it's suitable for the family. There's no sex, just Princess Bride, true love, lots of fighting, but no gross trauma inducing descriptions, and lots of honor in doing the right thing. And there's enough repetition that if you get distracted, it fills you in on the major plot points. You don't have to pay attention to subtle details. And there are no profound endings or plot twists like Hero of the Ages in the Mistborn series. Holy cow, that was a great surprise ending. It's just basic good fun. So enjoy the series. And please subscribe to the Robotics Through Science Fiction podcast and newsletter so you won't miss a thing.